Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Mr. Williams, your STEM teacher, and I am here because we're going to do a read aloud. The book that I have selected for this week is called The School Skeleton. It's an A to Z mystery. It is a chapter book, and I will read a chapter a day. At the end of each chapter, please check your Google Forms and respond to the questions. Here we go. The School Skeleton. Here's a picture of the school campus map. Get a good look at that. This is going to show you the places that you need to know throughout our story. Chapter 1. Dink, would you mind passing out the math paper to everyone? Mrs. Eagle asked. Oh no, a math quiz, Josh groaned. Miss Eagle smiled. Yes, Josh. We have one every Monday at 10 o'clock, she said. Now, I like to see a bright eyes, a quick mind, and a sharp pencil. The kids fumbled inside their desks for pencils, and some of them formed a line at the pencil sharpener. Dink liked his teacher and his room. Everywhere he looked, he saw books, cheerful posters on the wall, sunlight coming through the windows. Mrs. Eagle brought in a rug with some big pillows for the reading corner. This was Dink's favorite spot in the room. Dink's full name was Donald David Duncan, but when he first learned to talk, all he could say was Dink. Now that was his permanent nickname. He walked to the paper shelf and grabbed the stack and began handing it to the other third graders. When Dink got to his friend Josh's desk, Josh grinned and whispered, Teacher's pet, teacher's pet. When Dink gets sick, he goes to the vet. Teacher's pet, teacher's pet. When Dink gets sick, he goes to the vet. Josh Pinto was tall and thin. He had red hair, and he liked to fall over his freckled forehead. Dink crossed his eyes at Josh. Then he slid a piece of paper onto his desk. Can I have two? Josh asked, pulling another sheet from Dink's stack. Ouch! Dink yelped. Looking at his finger, there was a thin cut. It was beginning to bleed. Oh, what's the matter? Mrs. Eagle said, walking over to Dink. I got a paper cut, Dink said. I'll bet that hurts, Miss Eagle said, handing him a tissue. You'd better go to the nurse's office and get a Band-Aid. Dink pressed the tissue against his cut, and he headed for the door. When he passed Ruth Rose's desk, she grinned at him. Hurry back for the quiz, she teased. Ruth Rose Hathaway lived next door to Dink on Woody Street. She had bouncy black hair and quick blue eyes. She always dressed in one color from head to toe. Today's color was daffodil yellow. I'll be back, Dink said. He left the room and headed toward the nurse's office. Mr. Neater, the tall, white-haired school janitor, was sweeping the floor. He wore a metal keyring on his belt. The keys jangled when he pushed the broom. He waved at Dink. Dink showed him his cut. Ooh, I bet that hurt, Mr. Neater said. Dink walked past a long line of lockers and bulletin boards. His paper cut was stinging, so he squeezed the tissue tighter. When he passed the principal's office, the secretary, Mrs. Waters, was sitting at her desk. Behind her, through another door, Dink saw the principal, Mr. Dillon. Mr. Dillon was talking on the phone. Mrs. Waters smiled at Dink. Are you here to see Mr. Dillon? She asked. Dink stopped at the doorway and held up his finger. Paper cut, he said. Mrs. Waters shook her head. I bet that hurt, she said. Dink nodded and hurried to the nurse's office. Miss Shotsky was staring at her calendar when Dink walked in. Can you believe it's almost the end of March? She asked Dink. 82 days till summer vacation. Dink held up his finger. I got a paper cut, he said. Ooh, I bet that hurts, Miss Shotsky said. I'll have to amputate. Dink's mouth fell open, and Miss Shotsky burst out laughing. Then Dink laughed too. Come on to the back, where we keep all my torture stuff, she said jokingly. She led Dink through a doorway behind her desk. Miss Shotsky pointed to the examination table in the middle of the room. Hop up there, please, she said as she walked over to a white cabinet. Dink sat on the table and looked around the room. Something smelled nice. Then he noticed a vase of flowers on the table to a closed door. There's a picture of Dink and Miss Shotsky, and there's the flowers, and there's the flowers that he smells in the room as she goes into her white cabinet. Over her shoulder, Miss Shotsky said, I have Batman Band-Aids, Wonder Woman Band-Aids, and a Bunny Rabbit Band-Aid. Your choice, kiddo. What would you like? Batman, please, Dink said. He stared at the corner of the room where the school skeleton usually hung from a hook. Miss Shotsky, where's Mr. Bones? The nurse had her back to Dink, hanging in the corner where he always is. Dink stared at the empty corner. The school skeleton had been there as long as Dink could remember. Miss Shotsky would bring it to each classroom when she told the kids about eating vegetables and drinking milk and how they made strong bones. At holiday time, she always dressed up Mr. Bones in costumes. The only thing Dink saw in the corner was a red scarf hanging on a hook. He's not there, Dink said. Miss Shotsky turned around. Don't play tricks on your school nurse, she said, grinning at Dink. I'm not, he said, pointing at the vacant corner. Look. Miss Shotsky looked. Her mouth dropped open. Well, I'll be hog-tied, she said. He is gone. Maybe someone borrowed him, Dink said. I don't know when, she said. Mr. Bones was right there when I came in at 7:30. I know because I put my scarf on him. Nope, someone swiped my skeleton. Miss Shotsky shook her head. Anyway, let's look at your boo-boo, she said, removing the tissue. In about 5 seconds, she had cleaned Dink's finger and wrapped a Batman Band-Aid around it. Now scoot back to class so I can tell Mr. Dillon about Mr. Bones, Miss Shotsky said. She grabbed Dink's hand and dropped 2 wrapped chocolates into his palms. Thanks a lot, he said. You're welcome, she said. And if you tell anyone that the nurse gave you candy, I'll deny it. She patted Dink's shoulder and walked him into the hallway. Admiring his Band-Aid, Dink ate one of the chocolates on his way back to class. Mrs. Eagle had her back to Dink when he walked into his classroom. Every kid's head was bent over on the math quiz. On the way to his seat, Dink dropped the other candy onto Ruth Rose's desk. Hey, what about me? Josh squeaked. Dink grinned and slipped into his seat. And that is the end of chapter 1. Please be sure to check your Google form for some follow-up questions to each chapter each day. I'm your STEM teacher, Mr. Williams. Have a great day.